Welcome to another episode of Small Teams, Big Wins, episode 6, baby. Episode 6. I am your host, Jordan. I'm an engineer that works at the intersection of cybersecurity and AI-driven automation, and I'm joined by my colleagues.
So I'm Ben. I'm a team lead for the innovation lab at Naptic, and I use my background in education to kind of translate the technical skills and technical things that we do to a lot of the non-technical people that we work with.
What's up, guys? Darien here, back at it again. So I take some sort of visionary responsibility within the Naptic team, and helping us connect the dots between entrepreneurs across the world.
And gentlemen, today we have the pleasure, the joy of speaking with Steve. Steve, are your bags packed for Saudi Arabia, man? Are you all ready? Are you all ready to go?
I am flying in less than 24 hours, and the answer to that is no. And what's even worse is my wife surprised me today saying, you do remember that her parents are coming to visit for dinner tonight. So my preparation has consisted of making sure the house is tidy for the in-laws. You know, you don't want that criticism hanging over you when the in-laws come to visit.
Right, you need the priorities.
Totally. Dude, I don't know about you, but like my strategy is always like, I always like force myself to actually stay up later. And I get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I like staying up. I like watching a movie. I do laundry, and I scatter everything in the living room, and then I like kind of slowly pack, and then I sleep for like 3 or 4 hours, and then wake up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, and then I crash out on the entire plane ride. Anything with motion, I'm out. Do you sleep well on planes or sleep while traveling?
I think what's really interesting, you've opened something up, not just with plane travel. With plane travel, I've got to an age now where, you know, I just take daytime flights. I hate the nighttime flights. It has to be either traveling at the last minute and whatever the case may be for me to take sort of night flights. And but I'm usually okay. I'm usually okay on flights. But what you've really opened up there is we have our family lives, right? We have our day jobs, and you know, the mundane things. The laundry needs to get done. You've got parents to look after. You've got other things going on in your life. And when you talk about sleep and you talk about leadership, you know, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because we have to spin so many plates, including keeping our household happy. Yeah. So I often find, you know, those later hours in the evening are my most productive. Everybody's gone to bed. I have quiet time. I can get things done. And it's not unusual for me to go to bed 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, but that then has an impact on the disruption of the flow of you know, I don't have kids, just my wife and I, and these things do matter. We often don't talk about, you know, what it is like to be actually human being in leadership. We often see these podcasts of leaders and we only need 3 hours sleep and go chase and charge the day, but the reality is, it's not just what we do as individuals that drive us. We have our biggest supporters in our families. You know, if it wasn't for our families backing us what we're doing, we probably wouldn't be able to do what we do, right? So big shout out to the families of everybody who's trying to push what they're pushing on, because it's tough. Yep. And we don't talk about doing the laundry enough and doing, you know. Yep. Doing the chores. Life happens.
Most definitely. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the 4 burner theory, but it's like you have, you know, your family as a burner, you have your friends as a burner, you have your physical health as a burner, and then you have your business, you know, as a burner. And it's like you can't have all 4 burners, you know, blasting at full capacity all at once. And it's like, are you willing to give up one or burn less of one to, you know, burn one at a higher capacity? And it's like, how do you balance all of those things, you know, and still be as successful and reach your goals that you would like? So, you know, you have to give a lot to get a lot, and which ones are you willing to give up to do so, you know?
Right. Love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm a bit of a photographer, and I know Darien shares that affinity as well. And, you know, whenever you have a camera, right, you have your shutter speed, your window length, right, and like your aperture, and there's just like these balance of three, and whenever you do one's got to give, right? And I love that analogy, Jared, on the burners, man. Gosh, and it's so true. And Steve, I could already tell, man, that PhD in philosophy is kicking. PhD in philosophy is kicking, dude. But Steve, I wanna get us going. I want to get us going here, man, because right, you're based in the UK. You've done 16 years in healthcare, and you're getting your PhD in philosophy. And what that kind of tells me is like, right, you're not just trying to identify innovations and progressions in healthcare, but you're really foundationally looking at like the frameworks and belief systems that govern a lot of that. And so you've now founded Welcome Health Ventures. And so I guess, can you just kind of start us off with talking a little bit about just kind of that intersection for you? Like, what's philosophy kind of doing for you, and how is that helping you to kind of continue your drive within the healthcare space, and specifically, driving a lot of that innovation and that innovative culture that seems to be lacking, honestly, from kind of a global perspective?
It's really fascinating trying to look at combining or bringing more in a cohesive manner academia and almost like reality, right? So a PhD is a doctor of philosophy, but my part-time PhD out of UCL is very much focused on looking at the Saudi Arabian healthcare system and considering how strategy at healthcare systems is designed by who. And I'm also looking at climate change and sustainability. So we know that this is a very big challenge in the healthcare industry. Nearly 5% of the industry emits 5% of CO2, which if it was a country would just sit behind the biggest ones of the US, China, and Russia and India. And so healthcare as a system has a problem with sustainability. And what I find fascinating is pretty much every clinician makes some sort of vow, whether you're the doctor taking the oath or otherwise, to protect human health. But the system in itself, by its very design, is killing you. The system, the healthcare system, the healthcare industry, the buildings of hospitals, they are inefficient. They are contributing to poor air pollution. They're contributing to lots of issues. You look at the supply chain in the healthcare system. This is a huge problem when we look at the sustainability challenge. So what I find really fascinating in my studies is, because it's a doctorate of philosophy, we take a theoretical view of how to explain the world around us. And I've really rested on two key academic concepts called resource-based view and resource dependency theory, which is an academic SWOT sort of way of saying it is almost like the SWOT analysis, an academic SWOT analysis. And what we're really saying is, well, what does the external environment look like? And what does the internal environment of your organization look like? And what is it that we need to do to change, to adapt and take advantage, that sort of competitive advantage, sort of classical sort of theory for competitiveness? And how do we apply that to something like climate change and system design? And I love that. I love everything that we observe around us, our day-to-day lives. How do we make sense of it? And it's literally called sense making as an academic term. How do we make sense of the world around us? And as human beings, we like order, we like to understand things. And we hear in politics in today's age that there are so many different versions of the truth. And it's so true. Depending on your upbringing, depending on where you were born, depending on the color of your skin, your gender, you will have a completely different perspective on life. And so how we make sense of the world is very unique, and I think it's just beautifully human. And so how do we take that to innovation? How do we take what it means to be human into innovation and scaling innovation and AI and safety around AI? How do we go into this, making sure that what makes humans so brilliant and wonderful and beautiful, extends itself into that digital world?
Yes, I mean, Steve, there was kind of two things you said through that really kind of stuck out for me. And the first one was this idea of constructs. And I love how you put it, right? You're like, because, as human beings, there are so many different versions of how we perceive the world, right? And they're all based off of constructs, right? That go on whenever we're born, we're this, soul, life. And then as you kind of go through life, right? Where you were, I'm from, Texas, right? Kind of, so that comes into play, who you were, your geographical location, who your friends are, what sort of environment that you grew up in. And what I've seen as I've gone through life is that some of the most challenging pieces of it are actually deconstructing some of that and trying to kind of get back to your own kind of genuine way of thinking, your own kind of genuine way of perceiving the world, which is super tough because you're just in this world of like nonstop stimulus and data and nonstop additional constructs, and especially when you start getting into, and this kind of leads into the second thing that you said from what I heard was, as we get into this kind of AI driven, data driven world, how do you, and this is something that's really, really like important to what we're trying to do at Naptic, and a lot of the major reasons that I think that we mesh so well is, how do we utilize these technologies? How do we utilize these advancements to, aid those that are doing human-centric, mission-driven work, right? How do we use this stuff to reclaim time back, to scale these really positive impacts while also being very cautious of the kind of darker side of it, and how if you start layering too much constructs over your like child's soul, right? Well, all of a sudden you forget what that means to be beautifully human.
I think what you said is so right. I've created Welcome Health Ventures to try to reduce the friction that I see and my experiences of the world, living out over in the Middle East for over a decade, and seeing that there is innovation that exists in some parts of the world and it's not scaled up, it's not everywhere, right? So why is it that depending on where you've been born and your upbringing, you have certain access to certain technology and not in other areas? Like, that is just like, as a human race, I think that's borderline criminal. How do we allow ourselves to live in a world that is, certainly, as we're talking about human health here, right? Human health goes above so many other things. How is it that some countries have access to some technology and others don't? And when I was living and working full time in the Middle East, I still spend a lot of time out there. And this is what we're trying to do is reduce that friction between innovators and health systems, so that good solutions, they don't just die in pilots, they don't die in politics, they don't die in procurement. We see good stuff being created. So for me, the way I've tried to make sense of the world has resulted in me being angry that this doesn't exist, angry that friction exists, angry that we historically have a wrong that needs to be righted. And that is, why does it take so long to scale innovation in healthcare around the world? What are those barriers? And that's what I'm trying to sit and in the middle of and understand, whether it's regulators talking to innovators talking to investors, clinicians who are running healthcare systems who don't understand procurement procurement processes, trying to sit in the middle of all of this, almost be like Geneva, almost be like Switzerland in all of this, is just joining up the dots. And what we see from our work is it's not just the investment. It's not just, you can have the best algorithms, but rubbish at deployment. You can have all the right things, but if you don't have human trust, if you don't build that relationship up, then like Dario was saying about the burners, if you don't have trust, forget everything else.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And it's, it's so interesting too, because, kind of as my background as like an engineer, right? Like really like, speaking just kind of from my point of view here, like I like building cool shit and helping people, but sometimes what comes with the engineer thing is like, I have a particular idea or like way that I want to go about it. And it takes me some time to like actually be able to pass that off to another engineer or something like that, because I need to build up that trust, right? And that needs to kind of be there. And it's an exercise on me, right, to understand the construct that I have for wanting to kind of be a perfectionist on stuff and going, no, like that's not the point. The point is to collaborate with another human and see what you can create together, right? And so I just think it's really inspirational the way that you focus on the trust aspect, because it's not just trust engineer to engineer, it's trust, kind of across every phase of taking research and insight. And this is at the core foundation of what we're trying to do with CMU, right? Which is another reason that I think we connected. But, it's okay, you take research and insights, and what do research and insights do? They generate a hypotheses, right, towards solutions for a given problem. Then you have to take that problem and go 0 to 1, right? Two parts of an innovative process: 0 to 1 and 1 to 1,000, right? And our friend Illy, he specializes in that 0 to 1 process, and he said it perfectly. He's like, it's really never the development; it's always the commercialization, right? It's always the
It's
actually
easy
getting
to
it.
build.
It's easy to
create.
Hey, especially in today's day and age, right, where the cost of development is going down to 0 now. Everyone can be an expert developer, right? Anyone can go get Claude code for whatever. So what still holds true though, and I really, really believe this, is, secure by design principles, right? Because, like we were talking about, when you have this, when you have technology and it exponentially goes up like this, right? And then I always imagine another curve, which is like the benefit that this exponential rise in technology is actually doing for human beings, right? Well, if cybersecurity and proper technical design and proper, and not being a solution in search of a problem, all of these things need to be done from the very beginning and included into it. And if they're not, the other graph, right, you're not impacting people in a positive manner, and you're also you're also not able to scale positive impact, kind of from a global scale. But we're all of us here travel internationally, right? Darien's been all around the world. He's been in Bali, India. Ben's on the beach over there in Isla Mujeres right now. So I kind of want to hear from my guys a little bit about some of the international travel that you've experienced, and have you seen some of these gaps, in maybe healthcare or just different stuff around your travels?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. The thing is, you there's some challenges because you deal with, populations that, for instance, India, who has the largest population in the world, they're also a very impoverished country, and they have so many people that it's difficult to, reach everybody in an efficient manner, and then give everyone equal access, or as equal access to all these things as possible. And, that's part of the problem too. And, how much funding can go into, creating this for people that can't afford it, and then charging the people that can afford it, too much too,
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
there's just this big fight in all of this, which just eventually just leads to politics and people being greedy. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just very difficult to get everyone to work together, especially, globally, because one country is looking out for the benefit of their own self. And because, I mean, in some case that's what you can control, and that's what you're trying to control. But it's how do you equally benefit everybody? And everyone's going to have a different opinion on that. And it's just a difficult thing to control, especially when your population is that large,
Yeah.
So I moved from the US to Mexico a little under a year ago. And I've lived in a couple countries now that have had widely socialized healthcare systems. So we're actually experiencing something with that right now with my 1-year-old. My wife brought him in yesterday to get some vaccines, and our private practice does not carry the measles vaccine because the Mexican government administers that for free in vaccination clinics. So we went from paying insurance at our private job for a private practice and getting everything we could need for, a cheap copay, to now here, there's no insurance involved. The copay is $60, so it's not much, but the government has more control over who gets what, when you can get what, and it's a big difference. I'll say Charlie's not going to not get his measles vaccine because of this. We're going to go to a vaccination clinic and he'll get it taken care of. And worst case, we have the means to go to the US if we needed to. But to your point, like, not everybody does. And you could imagine a situation where you couldn't attend one of these vaccination clinics. And so, to your point, Steve, the Mexican government is trying to look out for people because they have these vaccines public, free, not controlled by private practices. But there's a drawback as well. It's the access.
I think what you've raised there is we can define healthcare systems as complex adaptive systems. That's the academic term, really. And what it really means is everything's moving all at the same time. You cannot if you think you understand every single piece of it, you've lost it in a second, because there's always new research being uploaded, always new academic journals being updated and refreshed, new studies. It's constantly changing. And then you look at what philosophically is the healthcare system is broadly very politicized in most countries. And so we sort of over time, over hundreds of years, have found ourselves having very different systems of healthcare around the world, depending on which country you live in. The UK is obviously home of the NHS, and we're very proud of it. These things are never perfect, but we're still very proud of it. And it is free healthcare at the point of care. We pay through taxes, and it does not matter. You're not going to get a crazy bill for stubbing your toe, and you need to go see a doctor. The systems are different. But to Jordan, to your point, what does that really mean in terms of innovation and scaling innovation? It means that whilst it is easy to create, what problem are you solving? And is your problem that you're trying to solve a problem that is just unique to your local area, your home country? Or is it a global problem? Does the problem exist in other countries? And then when we think about investors and VCs and everybody else who's trying to decide what the next unicorn is and what to back and what we think is going to go, then these are important questions to ask at early stage. If you're in the lab and you're thinking about the problem statement and what you're trying to fix, and you're trying to create a solution, then what solution does that serve? Who does it serve? Does it serve the patient? Does it serve the insurance companies, the payer? Is it value-based healthcare? And what we see when you compare global healthcare systems is the US, as amazing as some elements are, some of the best some of the best hospitals, some of the best expertise are there in the US, but as a system, it's an absolute outlier. It is one of the worst. And so if you have US innovators trying to innovate inside a US market, there's very few markets like America elsewhere around the world. So yes, you can sell to America. Great, wonderful. It's a big market. Good luck to you. It's great. But you will struggle sometimes to sell that solution, as you say. Don't go look for problems elsewhere. You might struggle to sell that innovation outside of America because the system is not constructed in the same way. Value-based healthcare, public health, prevention of a cure. We don't want to over medicalize the worried well. It is not that difficult as human beings. We have not changed that much. Eat well, sleep well, exercise, eat a varied diet. It is not that difficult to stay healthy.
Our AI Transformation Partnership Program, or AITP, has been a hot seller for us. We learned all kinds of insights and pitfalls about AI integration from last summer and are ready to help you level up your business. Our customers who have invested $5,000 in developing their business with AI have seen great return in their investment. Not ready for a big investment? We totally understand. We offer payment plans up to 6 months and modular services, so you're only getting what you really need to take advantage of the power of AI. You can find out more about AITP online and schedule a free discovery call. We can't wait to hear from you.
And it kind of comes back to the external stimulus, the constructs, the east, right? Okay, here's some processed foods. Go grab this. Go grab your Lunchables, right? Go ahead, kids. Let's get you going on that stuff, right? Like all that kind of stuff. But no, it's great insight. I want to, there was one thing Darien kind of brought up, and it's a beautiful thread of this conversation, and it brings me back to the late Jesse Jackson, right? Where if we're going to win, we have to be together, right? And Steve, I know that has obviously come back into the public eye, but it's amazing that we're that we can get back to that thread. I wish that we would maintain that perspective all the time, So I kind of wanted to pass it to you and just kind of, what does that statement kind of mean for you? And what is if we're gonna win, we have to be together. How does that kind of influence you, and in particular, what you're trying to accomplish in the mission that you're pursuing?
I think it's a great area to explore, isn't it? And just to take a moment to reflect and think about just how important Jesse Jackson's life has been, to the impact this person has had, this one individual has had, and him amongst his friends and community has changed our lives forever, in his lifetime, and how we think about the world. And for me, whilst we take that amazing quote and we applying it in a slightly different context here, it goes back to the idea of, in order to be successful, we need a team. And the team is like a family. It's as engineers, it's kind of like all the parts need to come together to make it run, right? I have no idea how to build an engine, but I know what a good engine sounds like. I don't need to know the inner workings of AI. I don't need to know how AI actually works under the hood. But I know what good AI looks like. I know what it sounds like, in the same way that I know what a good engine sounds like. And to carry on that analogy, you have different sizes of engines. You've got engines for different purposes. So all what we are trying to do here is find the right teams to solve the right problems with the right solution, and find the right engine for the right car, for the right market, for the right purpose. There's a home for everything. But unless you don't bring that team together, then it is very difficult to scale things. And when we say the team, it doesn't just mean you as an organization, it is the whole ecosystem. Again, you need to have You need to have the buyer, you need to have the investor, you need to have the regulator, you need to have the product, you need the supply chain, you need the manufacturing done in China, wherever it's done. One of the most complex pieces of engineering is the humble pencil. Think about a pencil for a moment with a rubber at the end. That rubber comes from a tree. Somebody had to axe that down. Somebody had to axe down for the rubber plants and chop down the tree, had to be processed. There's that little metal band that goes around. There's so much effort that when you think about it, goes into the humble pencil. And we don't really think about where things come from. There's everything we see or touch, somebody had to think about that. If you see a row of trees, somebody thought about that. That was an idea. And so it brings us to this point that we live in a complex world and we need a family, we need a team, we need people to come together. It is about relationships and it's about authenticity, people going after things for the right reason. And what I see a big mistake from a lot of innovators is you engineers are the worst, in that good engineers are not necessarily good salespeople. I've seen some amazing engineers who have created some incredible innovation, can't sell it, can't stand on a stage, no public speaking skills, just awful. And you just think, I want to help. So having the right people, the salespeople, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, knowing who you need to have in your team, and swapping players out, if you need to. I think that's really important too.
Yeah, just being agile.
Yeah, I was watching something earlier today actually, and it was in reference to building a team and having partners, and they were referencing having partners, one being a fullback, one that's there to kind of help pave the path, take on, all of these big challenges with you. And one, being a cheerleader, someone to support your, your thinking, your creativity, the challenges that's being faced, and not someone that is going to constantly demoralize, everything that you're doing, but someone that challenges you with critical thinking. And look, how did you come to that idea? How did you come to that process? What led up to that, and why are you thinking that way? And what are going to be the end results of this? What could be the end results of this? Where could it go from there? And not like, okay, why? What are you doing? Why are you taking this path? There's clearly other paths to take. Why the heck are you doing that? And so, building a team is super important. And yeah, that's another thing that I have learned to do better, because from coming up where I was raised, it was, our family, myself, I was taught to, not partner with anybody, go into business with yourself, because at the end of the day, you can trust yourself. If you make a wrong decision, it's on you. That's all good. You learn from it. You can probably make a better decision next time. But, how much can you take on by yourself too, and you're not really going to be able to do, and as you accomplish these goals, of course your goals get bigger. You want to do more things. You want to step outside of not maybe, like for instance, I'm in real estate too, not just real estate, but now you want to do all these other things or bigger projects. And it's like, okay, well, let's start thinking about partnering, and how do we partner, and who do we partner with, and all of these things come into play. And it's just interesting to understand and decide who you want to partner with, and it's cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's so fun too, because like every single time we do a podcast episode, I get to learn a lot about our guest, but I get to learn actually even more about Darien, right? Or about Ben. But Darien, if I can just speak to you real quick, bro, I have seen you be so good at that over the last year and a half that we've been trying to build this up and go off. And it's the critical question asking. It's the being extremely supportive, even when there's a wrong decision made, right? And it's that genuinity, that's a word, I think. But and that critical inflection of asking questions that allow the partner, allow the other pieces of the puzzle to ask themselves and get to, and encourage the path to get to kind of what a solution might be, right? And so I just want to throw you some kudos and say you're amazing at that. And it also brings me to this idea, because what we're all talking about, like even going back to the humble pencil, Steve, I love that. I love the humble pencil, dude. I am gonna like incorporate that into my daily vocab. Like you have no idea. But what you're saying is like, so I'm a Buddhist and I try and practice pretty diligently and all that kind of stuff. But when you look at a pencil, right? A pencil is made of non-pencil elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
We as a team, right? Naptic is not one person. It's made of non-Naptic elements, the people that come together to raise it up, right? Even us, right? We're hydrogen, different elements, right? We need food, we need nourishment, we need sun, we need human touch, right? So there's this idea of interbeing, right? Which comes back to, if we're going to win, it's got to all be together, because we are all components of this existence, right? And until we all start realizing that and really keeping that at the forefront of kind of our intentions and why we're doing what we're doing, I don't think that we'll see much progress. Even it doesn't matter how many tools come out or technology or whatever, that if we're not coming at it from this idea of, an interbeing type of relationship, understanding that we're all elements that create this amazing opportunity for existence, we're just not, I just believe that that's the grounding core that should drive all of it.
I see, Jordan, Naptic like Welcome Health Ventures, right? It's like we've given birth to a child and we're all parents of it. You are not Naptic. You are Jordan, you are Ben, you are Darien, you are not Naptic. And Naptic is a thing that you are nurturing together, and you're all parents, and you all have your own little different styles, and you all, your conversations are very much around how are we nurturing this baby, and which school are we sending it to, and what are we, you're feeding it, what are we feeding it? You don't want to feed it processed food, because it's just going to turn out to be a horrible obese child later on. So I see this with Welcome Health Ventures a lot when I think about focusing energy and how to prioritize and how to think about decision making. And as a small organization, we're less than 2 years old. It has to, for us, focus very much on revenue. It has to focus very much on learning. If I can't delegate, if I can't train, if I can't pass it on to somebody, I shouldn't take it on. Welcome Health Ventures is not Steve Moore. Steve Moore is not Welcome Health Ventures. There's got to come a time in my life when I will probably move away from this in some shape or form. I'm not Bill Gates. I'm not going to be able to sit on this for evermore. Maybe no. I don't know what the future holds. But when we think about identity and we think about, with clarity, what it is that we're creating and why we're creating it, we're in this amazing moment in time. As you say, development costs have gone down to practically zero. Anybody can create anything. And it's about how do we bring partners together for what I would say a marriage, a love match, not a one-night stand. So that when you've given birth to something, when you've created something, you're sticking together as a family to nurture and create this thing and build it and grow it. But eventually this thing will leave the house. It will leave the nest. And I think that's really important for founders is it's great to create it and everything else, but when you think about the cap table, you think about where you're going and you're scaling it, you're going to have to release that control. You have to go less than 51% in order for it to succeed. Putting in the right governance in there, that's where you start to grow your reputation. For me, and what I do as I'm trying to grow an organization, and there's lots of people out there who operate as an individual. They tend to operate on success fee basis, which is terrible for your immediate cash flow, because it can take a lot of conversations, and you can take 6 months to close a deal before you get paid. But what we're trying to do here is grow an organization that acts more like tourist information, pointing people in the right direction, guiding people, just moving them along gently. You've got, it's like I suppose we're like the uncle or the auntie. You've given birth. We're just sort of, we take Naptic and we just move it along slightly and nudge it in the right way based on our knowledge and our shared experiences. And I think that's really important when we think about process and when we think about how to focus our energy and how we think about making decisions. I wonder what your experiences, guys, have been when I think about how you deal with those roadblocks, right? When you have a situation where you're sitting down and you're sort of in that sort of conflict, right? Certainly at the beginning, I wonder if there's some comparisons there between us and shared experiences here in this space. How did you overcome your own roadblocks?
Gosh, it's a very interesting question because I think each scenario is so much different than the next. But then I'm spread out through a bunch of different sectors and categories, and each challenge has its own way about going about it. How much time you respond to the challenge, how much time you digest what's happening within the challenge. Who do you want to get involved and have the conversations with about accomplishing these challenges? If you approach it one way, what's going to be how do you feel like the person that's going to respond to that? What type of emotions is it going to trigger for them to, respond back? And is it going to be a negative? Could it lead to a negative response, or is it going to create a more friendly atmosphere in order to get past it? Who's going to give more in this scenario when you're dealing with other people? Because how much advantage is one person going to take of the other person, and or is the person you're dealing with someone that can see it as you would see it and as more of a human aspect, and be like, you're compromising, I'm compromising. In this scenario, we're both winning as equally as possible. So this is a good approach to accept, and a good approach to go about it. So it's so interesting. Each challenge is just so interesting. But what I try to do is, when I'm approaching these challenges, is one, completely remove all emotion from it. Completely.
Sure.
So I was in the wedding business, for the past 16 years, give or take. And when it comes to that particularly, there's a lot of emotions involved with that, and particularly from the people that are having their wedding hosted or getting married, and from those family members. And so you deal with a lot, they deal with a lot of emotion. But for me, it was like, how can I work with you to make you feel better? And my response needs to be completely emotionless, in the sense of, acting in like an emotionally triggering way, because then it's just going to snowball in a bad way, what happens next. And so, I think it's important to not act emotionally, given the scenario and the response that you have in front of you, or the person gave to you. So, I think that's, for me, one thing that I've utilized throughout all challenges is just remove the emotion from the situation.
Totally.
I've got a quick anecdote to touch on that as well. And Jordan, I think this is going to resonate with you. So last summer, going into fall, we started trying to build up Naptic as this AI-driven automations company from the ground up. And we were trying to make every business process powered by AI, hands off. Right. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. We discovered that you need a human with a brain working in the midst, right? Like the guys,
human intelligence,
the machine pulling the levers whenever the steam starts rising too high. But the answer of how we got past those roadblocks was really leaning on each other. Anytime I was looking for an answer to something, or Jordan was looking for an answer to something, I knew he didn't know, or he knew I didn't know, we would tell each other. And we had two great master's students from CMU helping us as well, and we'd get them involved as well. And our solution was never perfect, but it got us moving. It kept the ball rolling, right? It kept that momentum, which was really important to 4 months down the road. That momentum was important for us to figure out that wasn't going to work, and that we needed to shift directions, right? Yep. If all four of us, And Darien, you were involved too, kind of sounding board every week, giving us direction, asking us the right questions. Like, why are we doing this? You know, what's the goal here? Have we looked at other avenues? If we had just sat there and week by week worked on our own little AI projects and be like, this is getting along, I don't think we would have come to the realization that it's not going to work. At least not right now.
At least not right now. Yeah. No, I mean, it was such an interesting time, because it's like, I learned to come back to the humble pencil.
Right.
What is the most direct way for us to get from A to B? And then let's go into building out agentic systems with that in mind, and let's keep it scoped, and let's bring the human intelligence aspect into the build process, into the create process. And it was such a fun 6 months, and the tech wasn't where it was at now, you know, like, but all this stuff. But yeah, and it brings to a nice transition point, which is, Steve, where I kind of want to ask what your opinion is in terms of, I know you had an experience where, you had hired some younger people, right? And just kind of wondering where you see the industry heading as far as incorporating AI and just like digital savviness in general, is AI going to replace people?
Yeah, I don't think so. We have a saying in the industry that AI will not replace people, but you will be replaced by somebody who knows AI if you don't know it, right? So I think we are talking about a mass skills program. We've got to focus and be mindful that in the healthcare industry, some of the best people in the profession, those with decades of experiences, are in their 50s and 60s. They're consultants, and they're or take nurses, for example, who are 1 or 2 years away from retiring. Are we really expecting them to get pulled out and deep dive into all of this stuff? So I think there's a lot of scaremongering, and there is some real consequences to that. I think radiology is a really particular interesting point, because some prominent figures in the industry have said, probably about 15-20 years ago, in 10 years time there'll be no need for radiologists. Well, they still exist, so they're still here. And because of those sort of comments and views, if you're a young person going off to university and who on earth is going to study radiology now, we actually have a critical shortage in radiologists because of people sharing these sort of views that AI is going to replace it, and so on. And so we need to be very mindful about our language when we talk about jobs and replacements and trying to predict the future, and these futurists, I think they're called, because now we have delays, we have waiting lists because there's not enough radiologists around. AI can take us so far. And again, thinking about that safety element, what happens when all the lights go out? You're going to need the radiologists, right? So it's kind of this, I think in the medical industry, if we go back to ancient Egyptian times, or the Romans, or the Vikings, or Native Americans way back when we consider what is the roles and responsibilities of a doctor, there was once upon a time when doctors were going around with leeches, and they thought that was the best thing to do. Using leeches to suck blood out would make people better. There was a time when doctors would perform some awful procedures. I was about to recite what I thought. No, keep it nice and neat. People might be eating their dinner, but the role and the definition of what we expect from people in the industry is going to change, and it's no different from people using leeches and electrocution for treating mental health conditions. We're better than that. We're learning all the time, and so it's a process, it's growth. And those people who are going to be successful and navigate the next decade or two in their careers are the ones who are going to take the time to learn it, to become familiar with it, and to work with it. But we must protect those people. It is who don't want to do that, who for whatever their reason. It is about personal choice.
Definitely. Kind of just want to sit with that for a second.
I like, Jordan,
So
what you said, thinking about that A to B. I would like to come back to think about you as a team. We're talking about the quickest way to get to A to B, and I think in the industry that I'm in, when we're taking organizations and they'll say, "Hey, Steve, how can I bring this to the UAE? How can I sell this in Dubai? How can I sell this in Saudi Arabia? How can I sell this in the UK?" Everybody kind of wants to know that what's the secret. So what's the quick way to get from A to B? And I think a little bit like your journey, you have to immerse yourselves. You've got to immerse yourselves in the environment. You've got to immerse yourselves in the community that you seek to serve. And I wonder from your own experiences how you've had to pivot as an organization based on that immersion and those experiences where you've observed something and you've gone back to the office and you went, we need to change track here, because all of your data points are, well, we're not as accurate as that information is now coming in. And I wonder if that's the same. I wonder if that's the same for you as it is for me, not just in what we're building and why we're building it and how we're building it, but in the services that we are offering. Because I think immersion is the secret, it's source. You have to immerse yourself into the environment. So people who want to come over to the GCC and look to set up an office in Dubai or sell their products and services in Saudi, for example, you have to be there. You have to have that immersive experience. You have to build up those relationships and trust.
Yep. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. It was funny. It was my second year out of grad school, and I was working this like corporate security job, for one of the largest grocery store chains in the US. They were serving Pennsylvania, Ohio. I was getting paid, nice, had a 401k matching, sitting in a cubicle in Pittsburgh, and I'm like, I can't do this, like I only made it a year, and I was like, took the year in bonus. I think I went to Cabo, came back with like no real plan, and then I was like, okay, well, I want to go live abroad, but I was trying to do this thing where I didn't fully commit. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and apply to jobs over in Australia. I was trying to go to Australia at the time. I'm going to apply to jobs in Australia from the US. Right. And of course, nothing, I'm getting no traction, nothing's happening. Kind of delayed that for a little bit, ended up getting a visa to New Zealand. And this time I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go down there and figure it out, and just completely just went, didn't know anyone, and was just like, okay, we're going to do it. But we also experienced that, like I said, last summer in the innovation lab, where we started we had this idea, and like there was all this potential with like the latest technology, and like we started just wanting to go explore the forest with no real idea of like where we were trying to get to. I think we started off with an idea, and then all of a sudden it just kind of started spurring into a million spider webs of like avenues that we can go down, and that's when it kind of clicked for me. I was like, okay, like, why don't you just start with on a pencil and paper and lay out like where is it that, like, what's the end destination? If anyone's ever gotten on, if anyone's ever vibe coded with Claude Code, all of a sudden you start saying yes to a bunch of stuff, and you got a million features that you never even needed, and you tried to, deploy it, and, now you're going to spend another 8 hours trying to debug and stuff before you even get anything working. And it's way too complex, and it's just a mess, and that's and we learned that, we immersed ourselves in that. Yeah. And now 9 months later, we're a much better organization for it, and we can deliver value, and we can actually help people that are doing human-centric work by avoiding those pitfalls and doing it because we did it ourselves, right? That was the whole thing that we wanted to do from Naptic, was we can't possibly go deliver value or go help people if we can't say ourselves that we've tried all of these different avenues and completely immerse ourselves in that. And now we've come back with a whole bunch of insights that you don't get from, you don't get yeah, you don't get by just reading or whatever. You have to go do it. You have to go fail. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know? And of course that adds pressure. Of course that adds, you know, whatever. It's like, okay, you know, you can think about it as, okay, we wasted time, we wasted money, we wasted resources. Or you can go, well, we would have never gotten to that point. We wouldn't have all these kind of exciting things that we're trying to work with CMU at. We wouldn't have these relationships that we have with Gayatri, Shreyas, Shrikant, right? I've met with all of them over the past several months, and now we're going to stay in touch as an organization with them. We're going to stay in touch personally, individually with them. And it's just so cool how that, you know, how that all came to be. And it just doesn't happen, like you said, without immersing yourself in the environment that you're trying to pursue. There's no, it's like the same thing with, it's no secret on how to, it's no secret on how to do it, but it's another thing actually putting it into practice and putting yourself in that immersion scenario and being uncomfortable and being okay with failing and learning and all you know, all the stuff that I know that we all know. So
yeah, it's like finding 1,000 ways to not build a light bulb. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
You're so all well traveled, and when we think about that immersion experience, you know, for those organizations, yourselves included and others, for those who are looking at scaling outside of the US or outside of their country, go travel. It's the biggest reason why we've put together a 6-month program where we are taking people on a learning journey. Really, we're going to educate people. We're going to say, here's what to do, what not what to do, and accumulating in a visit to Riyadh at the end of September. And it just means that people come prepared, right? You're there, you're prepared, you understand, you're anticipating what's going on, you're maximizing the value out of that opportunity. If you're going to be in Riyadh at these sort of big sort of conferences, why wouldn't you be prepared? Why wouldn't you be putting in the effort 6 months out to line up meaningful conversations and so on? And really what you're doing with that immersion is testing your data points. You're testing to see whether the solution that you have built is a solution worth exporting out to other places. Does the problem still exist, right? But to your point, Jordan, you've got to put the time and effort in. There's no shortcuts with it. There's only so much you can put in Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, saying, what market should I extend to, and where does this problem exist? You have to get on a plane. You have to build up those relationships. You have to go see it with your own 2 eyes. There's a feeling to it all. There's a vibe to it all. When you're, it's kind of like the smell test, isn't it? You know, you just know when food smells great, and you know when it doesn't smell great. And when you walk past a restaurant and they're pumping that beautiful smell outside, you're walking in the restaurant, right? And I don't think that's any different when we come to nation states who are trying to attract talent, trying to attract business, trying to scale innovation, try to create IP, share IP, all of these things. It's all an interweb. But unless you immerse yourselves, you're not going to get those. You're not going to get those experiences. You are going to end up. There's always success to be found, but what type of success? It's the opportunity cost. People who decide to scale into Europe first and not the GCC, they're going to have one experience, but it will still be an experience. And so I encourage people to come to the GCC, to look at the opportunities, to immerse themselves, and that's what we do. We want to help people. It may be that you decide, it's not for me, it's not the right time, it's not now, but at least you know what the opportunities are. You know what you need to grow. So I love it when people travel. I love it when people immerse themselves. I've been blessed to travel to nearly 60 countries around the world. It's a proper little hobby of mine. Easy when you're based in the UK with there being so many European.
I know y'all have such great access. I'm always so jealous of the train.
It's a little bit easier.
Specifically, I love trains. And I'm a big train guy. And y'all got all the trains, man. And I'm like, I got so much time for it.
Do you know, I'm sure I just want to see if this resonates with you all. human beings are all the same, aren't we? We have our friends, we have our families, we love to love, we love to laugh, we love to live. We care about those in our communities around us. And it doesn't matter whether if you're in India, New Zealand, on an island in the middle of the Pacific, you know, there's really a lot more that we have in common with one another. And I think what we see in the news and we see in what's going on is not reflective of human nature at its heart. And I think if we can be, I think if we're all better human beings and we open out our hearts and our ears and our eyes and see what's really going on, there's a lot more that brings us together than what divides us apart.
A little bit of empathy goes a long way.
Chicken is chicken everywhere except with a different sauce. That's
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Gosh, that's such a great, I just want to kind of sit with that for a second. That's such a great kind of way to wrap up what's been a beautiful hour. I would kind of like to leave everyone with just this kind of simple idea that kind of, I think, brings us all together. And it's, you know, great innovation, right, doesn't scale without security, equity, and human trust, right? Ask who trusts this and why, right? And so, Steve, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. Ben, Darien, I want to thank you guys for your insights. This has been a great session, and like I said, just hope everyone's able to get something from this. Gosh, we look forward to these sessions so much. Steve, great, like I said, great stuff. Good luck with the travels to Saudi Arabia, man, and we'll definitely be in touch. And yeah, man, just want to say thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for your time, man. That's awesome.
Thanks,
Steve,
Darien. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Jordan.
it's much appreciated. Steve, where can everyone find you?
LinkedIn is the best thing. I don't really do other social media. Doom scrolling, terrible for it. Trying to stop myself from it all. So find me on LinkedIn. Steve Moore, find me on Welcome Health Ventures. You'll find me there.
Amazing.
And if you're a CMU student, you might be able to get an inside scoop over to Steve. I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna see if we can wrangle Steve into to participate in some of the fun stuff we got going on. Awesome. If you guys are interested in some of the initiatives that we have going on, in particular related with Carnegie Mellon, you can head over to our website and learn about the Innovation Lab. And just some of the spirit and intention behind some of that. All right. Well, great.
Keep crushing life, guys. Well done.
Keep crushing life. That was awesome. Yeah, Steve. You know, we'll just kind of cut the recording. You know, at some wrap up. I need to record like a little bit of an outro or something like that.
You need like a little jingle. Like,
right.
A little.
Yeah, something. Well,
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to say good luck with the in-laws and the packing tonight.
They're in Gatsby now. We're off. What's really nice is we're off to the pub for dinner.
There we go. Steve, have you been to Bishopsgate yet?
Bishopsgate?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. They just came out with a documentary with Gordon Ramsay and his whole process of opening his restaurants in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. What's Bishopsgate? Hold on. What's Bishopsgate?
There's too well traveled for us here.
Yeah, I know. What's Bishopsgate? I want to know.
Gordon Ramsay just opened up at the very top. Bishopsgate. And it's like it's like 350 seats. He split it into 3 segments. He has Lucky Cat in there. He has this 12-seater concept where you get to watch the chef and he takes you through a couple courses of a meal, and you have this amazing view of the London Bridge. You're looking at the what's the tower that one of the largest towers there that kind of looks like a triangle?
Oh, the Shard.
The Shard. You have this amazing view of the Shard, and
Bishopsgate is it's an area in London. It's right next to Liverpool Street Station. So this is where, like, what do you guys have? The New York Stock Exchange area, Wall Street. That's Wall what Street, I'm looking for. So it's kind of just outside Canary Wharf. Liverpool Street is a really big major part of London. Bishopsgate, there's a whole bunch. It's a fairly new complex, really. But there's some wonderful, huge skyscrapers there. When you said Bishopsgate, there's a place there called Duck and Waffle. and it's unbelievable. If ever you find yourself, I haven't tried Gordon's place, but Duck and Waffle in Bishopsgate is my go-to for a decent breakfast in London. So when you said Bishopsgate, I just, my head was straight at Duck and Waffle. And on Gordon Ramsay, I was living in Qatar, and he has a restaurant at the St. Regis, and I actually spent Christmas Day with the in-laws. They came over to Doha to visit, and we had Christmas Day lunch, dinner at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in the St. Regis, and it was fantastic. It was brilliant experience.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
I recommend watching the Netflix documentary for any of you guys that are a fan of Gordon Ramsay or just food in general. It's pretty cool because it also takes you through the mindset of, you know, an owner, a leader, an entrepreneur, a chef, and how he juggles so much. Because I mean, he has X amount of restaurants all over the world, and what that process is like, trying to juggle everything, including a family life. I think he has like 6-7 kids or something, or like 5 kids or something like this.
It's incredible.
Goes back to
and he's an Ironman. He does triathlons. He does Ironman triathlons as well. I it was a long time ago. It's about a decade since I've done a couple of Ironmans, half Ironmans. I've done one full Ironman, and to see Gordon Ramsay just smash it with all of his businesses and the family life, and still have time to trade and do triathlon like that is just nuts.
You know what that tells me though? That tells me that he's like in line with, it's this idea of dharma, like kind of your intention, or what your kind of like what you're supposed to be doing, you know, like your kind of soul's alignment with like what you're doing. Because if you're really operating from that frequency, energy flows naturally, right? Like you have all of a sudden capacity to do all this stuff because you're getting energy, like you're getting energy from it, you know? So I know that that's always been, gosh, like that's the pursuit right there, you know, that's the, you know, knowing that you're never going to get to the destination,
Right.
That it's just all, you know, enjoy just being in that, you know? Yeah, that's dope. Yeah. Hey, and Steve,
appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, and Steve, I will follow up with you on, we are getting some movement. We got asked to do a capstone project for the AI Masters, to sponsor a capstone project with the AI Masters program this summer at Carnegie Mellon. And what I'm trying to do is talk to the school about letting us do kind of a pilot of what I was talking about with the kind of innovation pipeline, being able to take research insights and give students over a 16-week course, capstone, whatever, and give them that framework, give them, you know, some touch points to some mentors that have been there and been through that process of going 0 to 1, from problem inception to development to go-to-market strategy to preparing investor decks, that kind of thing. But keeping it very scoped, because that's a lot to do in 16 weeks. So keeping it very scoped to maybe a small subset of the problem. But dude, it would be really, really cool to talk to you more about that if there's some interest from you, and I think that there is. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. I'm getting some movement from the school, and you know, nothing really happens without the school, right? So I'm kind of organizing who we got on this end, and then I have a meeting with the school on Friday. So should be cool. I don't see any reason that they wouldn't absolutely love for that, though. I think they're, you know. So
I'd love to.
I just wanted to
explore. Love all of that. When it becomes more concrete, send it all over. Reach out anytime. I love the idea of there's got to be it's inevitable. There's got to be some amazing solutions being cooked up in the labs over there that we just know is going to work. And so creating that bridge over either into the UK, Europe, or into the GCC, just let's just take a look at it and see what we think will fly. There's investment opportunities for early stage. I was on a great call this afternoon with a VC who are investing in early stage stuff, and you know, it's just joining up the dots. It's
it just takes someone.
Just really does. And then just connecting it and plugging it into the systems, that's not that difficult to do. What we've got to do is just find the right solution with the right team that sits behind it, who are motivated enough and they want it enough. It's a bit like you saying about Gordon Ramsay and energy, right? It's like, if the energy is right, and we can't do it for them, but if the energy is right and the solution is the right solution, then that's the stuff that will fly.
Totally. Yeah. And our kind of one of our key KPIs associated with that is providing these students that are driven, that do have that energy, a path to internships, a path to full-time employment, to let them continue to work on their freaking, the work that they've done, and where an entrepreneurial course doesn't stop at 3 months.
Right.
Thank you for your time. Good luck. No, like, let's actually provide a pathway, and allowing these students, which a lot of them are international students, some are not, but providing them a pathway to go travel, right? Go maybe have an opportunity in the GCC, go have an opportunity in MENA, go have an opportunity over here, right? And I think that's where all of this comes together, is really core in mentorship, and letting those students ride with it. So that's awesome, Steve. Like I said, dude, this was so much fun. So good luck with all the travels, my man. And dude, we'll be in contact. I really, really appreciate you.
All right. Enjoy your day, guys. Appreciate it. All the best.
Cheers. Later.
Right.
Nice.
Dude, that was so much fun.
That was sick.
Gosh. Yeah, that was so much fun. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna do because we need to have.
Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed the episode. As we mentioned before, we believe that human intelligence supplemented with AI will lead to the most influential real-world advancements. If you're interested in learning more about our ongoing initiatives with Carnegie Mellon to foster the next wave of inventors, you can head over to our website and learn about the Innovation Lab there.